The assassination of Charlie Kirk has touched off a firestorm of a conversation about what is fair and honest discourse versus someone who many perceived, wrongly, frankly, as trying to stoke political divisions. Hello, I'm Adrienne Batra. With me are Brian Lilley and Lorrie Goldstein. Charlie Kirk, Brian, was arguably the most influential young voice in America that was supporting Donald Trump, that created an organization called Turning Point USA, that traveled all over the world in good faith to have honest discussions and political discourse with individuals. But there are many, far too many, that are celebrating his assassination, that are cheering this on. But I want to talk about Charlie Kirk, who he was, what he did, and the movement that he created all across the United States.
It's a movement that is on more than 3,500 high school and college campuses across the U.S. This is a guy who came from suburban Chicago area and decided, you know what I want to do? I want to go on college campuses, spread my message. And at a time when most people don't want to speak to people who they disagree with politically, people have gone into little silos. I get it all the time because I'm friends with Warren Kinsella, and Warren gets it. How can you talk to those people? Why would you be friends with them? Well, because we're still all Canadians. In that case, they're all still Americans. Charlie Kirk didn't try and keep himself in a silo. He went out and purposely engaged people, and not, you're getting this, oh, he was controversial. Oh, he was divisive. No, he would show up and he'd say, prove me wrong. And not in a nasty way. Most of the conversations that you can find of him online end one of two ways. The person asking the question gets really angry at him and runs away after, screaming something, or they have the civil conversation and Charlie would say, okay, well, I don't agree with you, but thanks for coming out. Thanks for participating. And then they part ways. That's the most common way that things went. But we live in an era where people don't like folks having other opinions. I heard about Charlie Kirk's shooting and his death after coming out of the Toronto International Film Festival screening of The Road Between Us, which people tried to shut down, and which I had to go through a gauntlet of security just to get near Roy Thompson Hall for the biggest screening of a movie, as protesters yelled and screamed and shouted and tried to drown everything out outside. I hope it doesn't get like that on college campuses after Charlie Kirk's shooting, because we need a free and open debate in society. That's what he was about.
Lorrie, the irony of the location on a college campus, the very place where it should be a bastion of free flowing and opposing ideas. These are the places where things come to be debated. But Charlie did something that hasn't been done in generations, and that was move, talking about the conservative side of the aisle and moving young people in the direction of becoming Republican in this instance, and very successfully. I mean, he was a big part of Donald Trump's success in getting that demographic in the last presidential election, almost 20-point swing. But he did it with, they call him the happy warrior. He didn't do it with malice. He did it with honest debate, which is where it should be happening on college campuses. So the assassination did take place there. And we should mention, as of now, the suspect, the perpetrator of this crime, is still at large. Lorrie, it is the very place where this type of discussion should be having. Yet this is where Charlie lost his life. And the rhetoric, and it's coming from the left, is so disgusting and so vile.
Yeah, I think that there's a terrible irony in it, in that what he challenged young people to do was to think critically.
That's right.
Our universities today, many of them that we've seen, based on their approaches to issues, they discourage their students from thinking critically. In other words, they're taught this is the right view, this is the correct view. Anyone who has another view is evil and should either be canceled out in the sense of the political sphere, or in a horrible, and I'm not saying anybody like advocated this directly, or should be killed. However, as you point out, the reaction on social media to his death has been astounding. even by some so-called Canadian influencers who should know better. And the look, in recent months, what have we had? We've had an attempted assassination. We had an assassination of Charlie. We've had 2 attempted assassinations of Donald Trump. We had the assassination of a Minnesota Democrat and her husband, and the attempted assassination of a Minnesota senator and his wife.
And an attempt on Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro's life.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. Anyone. You go onto social media, and most people can handle it, but anyone who advocates for any of these things, it's inexplicable. It's inexplicable. And we've apparently seen even a university professor in Canada who one of these, he deserved to die. That to me is the concern, and the way that what happened to him focuses on it is that he went to the universities, and what we've seen in those talks in that is how little critical thinking is going on in those universities, and lack of knowledge about issues, and that's where, with that ignorance, that's where this thing rises. But the idea that it's Republican or Democrat or left or right, no. There is a minority of people who are either mentally ill or just haven't been able to cope with their lives, who seize on the fact that the reason for their unsatisfied life is some boogeyman. It's either the Republicans, or it's the Jews, or it's the Democrats, or it's the Muslims. And that's manifesting itself more and more, particularly with social media algorithms that encourage conflict, because from a business point of view, when people are angry, they stay on social media longer and they engage longer. So there's a whole subset of issues going on here. And we can't reduce it to the kindergarten level thing that it's that, oh, the Republicans are violent or the Democrats are violent. No, our society's violent. And we're not taking the steps that we need to do, like restoring critical thinking in our universities, to combat it.
Brian, Charlie had that sort of Socratic way of going back and forth with people, and there's so many clips of him that people can see online. We're going to show a few here, but he would go into a room and he'd be surrounded by people who he knows have opposing views, and he would debate them one-on-one. But that was the point. He debated them. He talked to them. They used words, not weapons. And that was what he was really pushing for. And for Charlie, it just happened that he was conservative, and he was on that side of the aisle. And of all people that were trying to broaden the debate in the country, it was him. And for him to be gunned down, he was 31 years old, the father of 2.
Yeah.
And it's just like it's angering.
Well, and also disturbing, as Lorrie said, about the reaction. And I agree with him. We can't reduce it to, oh, this side, that side. Violence is coming from all sides. Let's be honest about that. But the Canadian professor that he mentioned, her office is blocks from where I'm sitting right now. I'm at Queen's Park at my office. And she said that shooting is too good for you fascists, and then used an expletive.
Yeah, we're showing her tweet right now.
Yeah. Just days before, she had posted on X that Post Media needed to be shut down because we're fascists. So if Post Media is fascists and shooting's too good for fascists, what should I be concerned about with my office being mere blocks from her in an area where I walk my dog several times a week? This is a professor of religion advocating for people to be shot. There's no other way to interpret that. Shooting is too good for you fascists. And by the way, here's the fascists. Go shoot them. We shouldn't be at this point. There's an old saying that I got from Phelan McAleer, who was behind a number of documentaries from the conservative side. He said, they're not evil, they're just wrong. And remember that. You don't hate the person that you're opposed to politically. They can be wrong to you. You can have a different point of view, but don't make them out to be evil. We have made folks out to be evil. And Charlie Kirk is being made out to be evil. I want to throw to a quick clip here of Benny Johnson, because I did not know Charlie Kirk. I know a lot of people in the American conservative movement, like Benny Johnson, Ben Shapiro, Glenn Beck, Steve Bannon, that all know and love Charlie Kirk. And Benny told this story on Fox News about how when he was down, Charlie stepped in to help him and his young family. Here he is on Laura Ingraham.
Charlie Kirk is somebody who, the year after that, provided something that I will never forget, and a story that I've never told anyone, Laura, and I will tell you right now. There was a horrific fire on my block in Washington, D.C., right after a mass shooting when D.C. defunded their police. We had just brought home our newborn baby, and the lives of my wife and my newborn child was under threat. And we felt horribly vulnerable, and we felt truly like we had nowhere to go. Charlie Kirk allowed me and my wife and my family, my young family, to stay in his condo here in Florida, to search for a new home, to have refuge and shelter when our home had been horribly fire damaged and when bullets rang out on my block that could have struck my family. And Charlie was there for us, and he never asked for anything in return. This is why, in fact, I live in Florida. My family has quintupled since then in children and in blessings, and it's because of Charlie.
So, just gave him his house while his house had been damaged by fire and a shooting had happened and, young kids in the house. Benny's a very different guy than I met back in 2011, and he would tell you that he is a better man because of the influence of Kirk, who encouraged him to take his business seriously, to take his family seriously. And, so he's a changed man because of that. That's the type of person that was lost because presumably someone disagreed with him politically. We don't know who for sure, but trying to find another explanation doesn't make sense.
Lorrie, the part of the message here is if you speak up, we're going to kill you. We're going to stop you by every means necessary. And sometimes that is in terms of an assassin, by means of an assassin's bullet. It's a very chilling series of events. It's a very disturbing message that it sends at a particular time when we should be debating issues, when we should be having more discourse with those that we disagree with. The temperature obviously needs to be brought down, but it is troubling that the message being sent is that if you speak up, you're going to get killed. And I'm wondering how we go forward from this point, because I believe a line has been crossed. Maybe it's an artificial line, but a line has been crossed. And the movement Charlie started isn't going to be stopped through his death. I think if anything, it's going to grow and be more emboldened. I'm just wondering your perspective on that.
Well, I look at the obligation of us working for a conservative newspaper.
Mm-hmm.
We have an obligation when something like this happens to say the answer is not to respond in kind. That it's wrong. It doesn't matter who is. And if you look at the history of assassinations in the United States, it has no political leaning. It has no political party. Republicans and Democrats have been, assassinated for decades. I also think that it's important that our public figures engage with those who disagree with them. I mean, what would help? A more civil House of Commons would help. Now, you can blame Pierre Poilievre because he's an opposition leader and the opposition leader opposes. You can blame the liberals because they're arrogant and yada, yada, yada. But the debate in Parliament sets the tone for this country. And if every day we see parliamentarians acting like children and yelling, that contributes to it. What we need is to counter insane people who think that if somebody disagrees with them, they're worthy of execution. Are sane people in the public eye who go, no, this is democracy. Democracy is about tough conversations. Let me give you one example. heard a quote from Charlie Kirk that was put on today in one media, and I think the idea was a knock on it. He said that, look, there's always going to be gun violence, and some innocent people will die because of gun violence. But that is an acceptable price to pay for the Second Amendment. Okay, it's really controversial, right? Really controversial. You can argue no, you can argue, well, look what happened here. But on the other hand, look at one of the maxims of our legal system. It is better that 100 guilty people go free than one person is wrongly convicted. Well, okay, very controversial, but there's a counter argument. No. When you make rehabilitation the primary sentencing principle and you ignore the protection of society, the denunciation of wrongdoing, and public safety, bad things happen. So don't try and say that there's no argument about what's going on in our justice system because it's better that one get blah, 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 blah. And that also applies to the Second Amendment debate. And on the second, you know what'll happen? Look, we don't know who this person is. Was the gun registered? Isn't it registered? They'll be, yeah, if it's registered, it'll be C, it didn't do any good. And if it's not registered, it'll be C, it doesn't do any good. But the broader issue is, what are the rights of individuals countered by the rights of society? And so the idea of people who are intelligent going back and forth on these issues passionately, that's fair. That's what our democracy is supposed to be all about. And these things endanger our democracy, and that's what we have to push back against.
Here's just a few more examples of Charlie Kirk and this whole push. He wanted to have the debate with people. Just have a look.
I'm a gay conservative, and I just want to ask you, what do you have to say for people like me who kind of feel like, I guess, it's kind of hard for gay conservatives because there's not a lot of us. So, like, what do you have to say to other gay people who need to realize, like, they do have a choice?
Yeah, first of all, welcome to the conservative movement. I don't think you should introduce yourself just based on your sexual attractions.
No, I agree. I like,
because that's not who you are.
I like to be thought of as a person, and
for sure, you are a complete human being, and I'm sure you treat people well, and you're studying something. So I want to get away with this idea that you're gay anything. I just think that we have gone a long way in the negative direction in this country, where we act as if the most important part of your identity is what you do in the bedroom. It doesn't mean that much to me, but if you ask from a perspective as a Christian, I don't agree with that lifestyle, but politics is about addition and multiplication. I imagine you agree with a lot of what we talk about.
Absolutely.
Right? Strong borders, strong country, and for that, we welcome you into the conservative movement.
Thank you.
And there it is, Brian. I mean, it's not contentious. They're not screaming at each other. They're not yelling at each other. It's thoughtful debate where he's pushing people to critically think about their ideas, regardless of the agreement or disagreement. I think he appreciated more, and those that opposed him appreciated more that they didn't all walk in lockstep. And I watched these clips of him, and I've seen so many of them since he died. And it really troubles me that that voice is now been silenced.
You know, I would say that one of the reasons he was so quick-witted and so good at what he did is because he did it so often, but two, when you are a minority voice in an area like an academic setting and you're putting forward your view, you're going to have people argue with you all the time. So you have to get better. I know working in the media as a conservative voice, it's helped me. I'm a lot sharper because I'm challenged on my views all the time. And so was he. And so he learned to do it in a way that was not how it's being described by CBC or MSNBC or places that just didn't pay attention to this guy before. And that's what I would say. If you didn't pay attention to him before, don't believe the people saying nasty things. Believe someone like Benny who knew him. Believe those who say he was a happy warrior, because that's what he was. It is a tragedy. Gavin Newsom, the very progressive governor of California, had him on his podcast 6 months ago. And has denounced his killing and said we need more people like Charlie Kirk, not less. That's what should be happening right now. I was asked on talk radio, what can government do to make sure this doesn't happen? And I said, nothing. It's up to us, and we've got to check our hearts and our souls in what we're doing.
Charlie Kirk, dead at the age of 31. Rest in peace. Like this video and subscribe to our YouTube channel, and go to the TorontoSun.com. You'll find commentary and coverage there you will not find anywhere else.